Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Juan DeAngulo. Hi, Juan.
Hello. How are you?
Good. It's great to have you on this podcast. And before I introduce you and your amazing bio, and we're going to have a great conversation today about processes and the importance of processes, especially in sales and marketing, and as the business is moving from a founder-based selling to the different levels under it. And in order to elevate it to the next level, we're going to have a whole conversation about that. But I would like to give a big shout out to our mutual friend that we adore so much, which is Marina Bejanova. And she deals with specifically branding, personal branding, and you went through her program, which is amazing. So the name of her company is Brand of a Leader. And she and I recorded a podcast. I was on her podcast, she was on mine, and I'm going to include that podcast on the show notes so people can listen to that podcast and learn more about Marina. But yes. I know you work with her. So when you exited, and I'm going to go over your bio, we're going to talk about that. But when you exited your other business and you started this one, you realized that you needed to have a brand of a leader and you start working with her.
That's right. It was wonderful. It has been wonderful. We continue to work together. And I think Marina and her team do an amazing job of helping to guide the process of self-discovery, really, and fine-tuning and understanding what it is that you want to focus on and what ultimately the impact that you want to do as an individual and as a leader is. So they're awesome.
Absolutely. And Marina and her team are just incredible. I agree. I've just seen Marina in action in her hometown in Montreal when I attended a conference, and she is the one that organized and was chairing. She was the chair, and I was amazed what that woman can actually execute and how she executes with this amazing flair and fun, and it's just amazing. So definitely listen to that episode. All right, so now, Juan, you are the star of this episode. Let's go over your bio, okay? So you're a serial entrepreneur, and you're the co-founder of Inselligence, which, yes, for our listeners, intelligence and selling, Inselligence. And it's a sales intelligence platform that helps organizations transform chaotic sales environments into structured operations. So, you're speaking my language because that's what we love to do, from chaos to clarity, from chaos to control. And you're guided by your belief that what you measure drives behavior. And after exiting a 12-year partnership with Elion Partners, where you helped grow a real estate investment company to 75 people and managed over $4 billion in assets, you're now focused on building companies and unlocking human potential through strong organizational cultures. So you're originally from Colombia, and you're a former Division I tennis player, which is incredible. Do you still play tennis?
I don't. I dedicated myself to golf since 2014, so it's sort of my newfound passion, but still love to compete in sports.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're very good at that. And that also helps in entrepreneurship, that competitiveness, yes, and wanting to win. Okay, good. And you bring a unique leadership perspective that emphasizes connecting with people beyond their professional roles while creating highly functioning organizations. Incredible. So Tell us about your journey from now you reside in Miami. So you're originally from Colombia. And I know you left Colombia, you went for 6 months to Venezuela, you studied there. What happened? Tell us your story.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, first of all.
Yeah.
Very fortunate. I grew up in a wonderful family in Cali, Colombia, beautiful city, great geography. Went through the very tough time of the 80s in Colombia, where there was a lot of impact by, the drug trade and other levels of insecurity there, which ultimately led to my parents deciding to leave the country when I was 17, which we went to Venezuela at first. And then we came to the US. I finished high school in the US. I was a tennis player. I was very fortunate to play Division One. I played up in Tennessee. Quite culture shock going from South America and within a year finding myself in the Appalachian Mountains, but absolutely amazing people. Had a wonderful time. Got to compete. And then I went to Virginia, did my grad school there, and eventually found myself back to Miami, where I started my career. I actually did 6 years in tech, late 90s. Everybody wanted to be in tech, obviously. And then I actually found a real passion for commercial real estate. And I made that transition. I felt that it was a very structured and financially driven investment space. So I worked for a couple of companies there for about 10 years. One of those companies took me to Chicago, which was one of the best things that happened to me, really going to not only an amazing city, but just an amazing corporate environment, business environment, wonderful people. Eventually made my way to Houston because of one of the companies that I worked with. And finally in 2012, like I like to say, I just found that I was tired of running out of shoe. It felt like every role that I went to, the shoe ran out and I outgrew it. And so I figured the only way to really make the shoe as big as I could would be to be my own boss and be an entrepreneur. So I found a couple of guys, just life brought us together, amazing guys. We co-founded Elion Partners in 2012, started it from scratch and grew it, like you mentioned, to a thriving business, which was an amazing experience. In that process, I ended up having the opportunity to go to Harvard Business School to the OPM program, which for anybody hearing this that is a business owner, I strongly recommend it. Was transformational for me. It was just an amazing experience.
So tell us what OPM stands for.
It is the Owners and Presidents Management Program. So it basically takes the MBA content of a traditional, let's say, MBA degree and delivers it in a 2-year period over a period of 9 weeks. You have to go in person 3 times for 3 weeks on campus. You meet absolutely amazing people from all over the world. Each class is about 150 people. And it was just an amazing experience. You learn about a third from the content of the classes, about a third from your peers, and a third from your own journey of self-discovery. And a couple of things happened while I was at OPM. Number one, I really figured out that at that point in my life, that was back in 2020, that I'm a builder at heart, right? I love structure, I love process, I love organizational development, and it's really what I really enjoy doing, and really maximizing impact of a product or a service and a group of people by really making them a very highly functioning organization. It's very, very much, it goes in line with who I am, what I'm passionate about. And at the same time, I had these algorithms that are driven for go-to-market efforts, sales intelligence, marketing intelligence. And so Inselligence got incubated while I was there. And sort of now you look forward, we're in the market and generating revenue and growing, and it's been sort of an interesting process.
Wow, what a journey. That's amazing, Juan. That's great. And thank you for sharing with us. So let's talk about Inselligence. Tell us more about that company.
Sure. So, selling is a process, right? And just saying that in and of itself a lot of times we find ourselves in very interesting conversations with people. We typically run into businesses that have a manifestation of a pain, and the pain manifests in the lack of insights and a very difficult process of reporting, right? That's really where the headache shows up. And as is in the case in our biological body, usually where you have pain is only a manifestation of a root problem. So in the case of sales and marketing, typically you have a sales leader, a founder that's frustrated with just the lack of scalability, the lack of understanding of what's really driving revenue, what's really driving sales, where is the success, how can I replicate it, how can I grow? And again, it's manifested in reporting. Usually they've gone through the process of implementing some sort of CRM. Popular ones, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Soho, Salesforce, Dynamics. One of those they've implemented. They've spent time, they've spent money implementing it. And at the end of the day, they're just not getting the answers that they want. So what Inselligence does through our own proprietary algorithms and machine learning, and now some layers of AI, we connect, plug and play with the CRM and immediately deliver insights to the company. And what it really starts a journey, right? Like, no software is a solution in and of itself. It's really a tool that allows you to start to understand and have visibility of what's going on. And so what usually happens is they realize first and foremost where they have data gaps. Finite databases like CRMs are never perfect. So they start to understand where do they have data issues, where do they have data gaps, and in a matter of days and weeks, start to gain insights of what's really driving their process, where do they have bottlenecks, issues, where are they, what kind of pipeline segmentation should they be doing? We run into companies all the time that have one pipeline in their CRM, and we connect the product, and immediately, because of the algorithms, we start to realize that they have apples and oranges in one pipeline, right?
So let's talk about that. Like what? Yeah. That's very interesting. So what type of data do you give us some examples? Like what
Sure.
would be the types of data that you uncover that is missing or should be there? Let's talk about. Let's give some examples.
Sure. So what the algorithms do is they focus on 5 variables, right? And one of the most important variable is time consumption, right? When we're selling something, we're consuming time. When you look at a CRM, you're going to probably figure out like overall sales cycles and that sort of thing. But what we do very granularly is look at how much time are opportunities taking at each step in the process. We also look at the conversion rates on each step. And then very importantly, we look at the deal size. So what happens is when you look at all of this holistically within the context of how much time do I have to reach a revenue goal, it lands it into the most important concept, which is flow. So let me give you a very specific example. One of the variables we always look at is average size of deal. So we look at both average and median. So I'll give you a specific example. One of our customers, we connected the data, and immediately I saw that their average deal size was $100,000, but their median deal size was $30,000. So that immediately for us is like this big flag that says there's something going on here. There's a big variance there that we need to look in. So when we dove in an additional layer behind the data, we figured out that in the same pipeline, they were tracking deals that were bigger than 250,000, and they had deals that were smaller than, say, 30,000. But when you have a platform that can give you the intelligence of exactly what is the pace of deals that you need to be adding to your pipeline, into your funnel, so that you can actually keep continuous flow, segregating those is very important, because it turned out that the average sales cycle of the bigger deals was obviously longer than the average sales cycle of the smaller deals. So all of a sudden, they gained this additional layer of visibility to understand where should they focus their marketing efforts. And historically, and I'm talking about in a matter of 30 minutes, we discovered all of this because of the algorithm platform. Where should they focus their marketing efforts? How am I sourcing small deals?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, because it's really starts, then it tells you where should you it also analyzes the effectiveness of the marketing because it's the quality of the leads that come in.
That's right. And it all starts with sales, right? So we start on the sales side. And again, we get to this deal cadence number once you have your pipeline segmentation clear. So like in their case, they had big deals and they had small deals, which is literally what we called them. So now we figured out, okay, we need to create these many, the profile of the pipeline for bigger deals was different than the one for smaller deals. That's makes sense. But now that they had that visibility, now you extend the conversation to marketing, right? So where am I sourcing these big deals and where am I sourcing these small deals? So we have a marketing module that links to the sales pipeline, and then it looks at in the CRM, how quickly are leads converting to deals.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, it not only tells you how many leads you need, but we do a full revenue attribution analysis where we're able to map where the leads are coming from and what deals are getting won. Because there's this big disconnect in the majority of companies that we run into where marketing is saying, hey, I'm generating leads, sales won't close them. Sales is saying the leads are not good enough and there's finger pointing, but the data doesn't lie. So when you're able to create this real clear connection and really understand where revenue attribution is coming from, you just get much more effective in understanding where you need to focus your efforts.
Right. That makes total sense. So what companies benefit from those services? What size of companies benefit from your services?
That's a great question. We're industry agnostic because the process of selling exists whether you have a 10-day sales cycle or you have an 18-month sales cycle. So we really, it's agnostic from that standpoint. From a size standpoint, we are really built to scale. So we have companies with as little as 3 to 5 salespeople, and we have companies that have hundreds of salespeople. So it's a very scalable solution, and it really doesn't matter. We are very focused right now in helping companies in the SMB space, 300 people total or less, so that they have, they usually have sales teams of like 5 to 50. That's like the sweet spot right now. Simply because we find companies that have a CRM, they maybe have some manual solutions for reporting. I didn't mention the reporting. Once we've set up all of these processes, the natural outcome is we have a whole set of reports that come out of the box with intelligence with them, that then now you can, at a click of a button, get your forecast, get your pipeline segmentation, et cetera, in a very simple way.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk now about processes, because we are both into processes. Yeah. So why processes are so important in a business, and especially in the sales area?
Yeah, I don't know at what point in my life I picked this up, but I've always thought about the 3 Ps, right? People, product, and process. And those are the 3 prongs of any successful business. I think as founders, when we start a new business, we are always focused on survival. And the lifeblood of a business is sales. So we come up with a new product or a service, we find a way to sell it. We start to hire people that can help us somehow staff this new entity that we created. And as we grow, process is sort of like an afterthought, or it's a necessary evil. I like to say that a lot of people have email, process by email, or people-dependent processes, right? Where you have a superstar salesperson, that's the one that you're really dependent to. And maybe you elevate them to VPs of sales because they instinctively know how to manage their pipeline, but they don't really know how to methodically lay out a process that can be delegated. And I think that's the key, right? If you're going to build a skyscraper, you first go down and you build a really big hole, and then you build the skyscraper. If you're building a single-story home, you just need a simple foundation. But I don't know many founders that start a business thinking, I'm just going to build this little business that I'm going to have. They're thinking about growing. And so when they start to grow, they start to have revenue, they start to experience success. The lack of focus on process gets really felt once you get to a certain inflection point where you could scale, but you can't. And at that point, you're trying to bring in an expert like you to help perform surgery for all of the process that was not thoughtfully put together. And it's not purposeful, right? You can't blame anybody for doing that, because when you're in survival mode, you're just looking to survive. And I think many times process is seen maybe as, well, it's going to stifle creativity, it's going to stifle innovation. And it's not really the case. On the contrary, when you put good process in place, you release people to go be creative so that they're not bogged down with a bunch of disorganized tasks that are really trying to just keep Humpty Dumpty together, instead of like growing a very methodical, purposeful, process-driven company.
Absolutely. And that is so true in sales. You have to have your processes documented. I mean, they have to be documented, they have to be optimized, they have to be known, they have to be followed by everyone, because otherwise you will have you can create a culture where you will have those superstars salespeople, but it relies on their personality or some kind of a thing that they figured out, or process that they figured out themselves. But if you don't extract that, if they leave all of a sudden, then what?
That's right. And I love to debunk the 80-20 rule, right? Everybody sort of believes that the 80-20 rule is mandatory. 20% of my salespeople produce 80% of my revenue. And so when we connect with CRMs, one of the questions I always ask people is, who's your superstar? Everybody knows who their superstar is. And so we just go to the drop-down menu that comes in automatically from the CRM, and we select the superstar, and we show them the data metrics of their superstar. And then with Inselligence, what you can do is take those metrics and set them as the target for all your salespeople, and you put the quota of all the salespeople, and now you give them a simple dashboard that they can log in every day, and it tells them exactly how many deals they need to have at each step all the time in order to perform like a superstar. So if you can elevate that 80%, imagine the impact that it can have on the revenue of the company.
Absolutely. So, but I think one of the questions that our listeners can have, okay, good, I understand that. How do I elevate them?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, process is about knowing where to focus your time, right? Time is the only resource that once we consume it, you can never get it back. You can't catch up, right? So every salesperson lives by a quota. So the way you elevate them is very simply by telling them exactly the profile of pipeline that they need to have, how many deals they should have, and then giving them very simple deal scoring based on the algorithms, so they know which deals to prioritize. Because sales at the end of the day is a numbers game, and it's a game of follow-up, and it's a game of discipline.
That's what I wanted to get to. I mean, it's the process of follow-up. So how do you elevate everybody? You're right. You start with, who do you want to clone? Well, create your sales process in terms of, maybe their presentations are much better. Okay, good. So what's the process for presentations? Let's document it and let's implement with everyone. But it's probably the follow-up. It's probably the process. What process do you have with your sales manager actually managing your people? That's a process by itself. They're there all the time. Put the attention, you're going to get it. I mean, just like what you said, what you measure drives behavior. If you start measuring it and you're the salesperson, the sales manager that measures, you're going to drive that behavior. But I bet anything that the people that you want to clone are the ones that have that process down in terms of follow-up, in terms of not letting things fall through the cracks, in terms of knowing what to do next. So that is what needs to be extracted and created into a process. And then you can train your salespeople accordingly and measure them with the system.
That's right. And I think embedded in everything we're saying is the balance between quantitative measures and qualitative measures, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think historically, because selling is very much an art of talking and listening and follow-up, I had this VP of sales tell me that his definition of a Monday sales meeting is a bunch of people lying to each other to make themselves sound like they're on track, because nobody knows, right? And it was funny, but not funny at the same time. And so I think there's a lot of qualitative efforts that are done. What do I mean by that? People will say, I want to know exactly how many phone calls they're doing. I want to know exactly how many meetings they're doing. But at the end of the day, a busy salesperson is not a productive salesperson. They could be making hundreds of phone calls. They could be having hundreds of meetings that they might be calling the wrong people. They might be calling the right moment, the right stage, right? So the data will help you. And this is a big thing, a big way that we help elevate the performance of salespeople is that by empowering the managers with visibility, the conversation with the account executive or with the seller shifts. What it used to be, hey, what are you doing to get to the quota? Chasing an outcome. Instead is, hey, I can see that you have a lot of deals up top, but you're struggling getting them down to the bottom of the pipeline. Let's talk about what's going on there, right? Like maybe it's a knowledge issue. Maybe it's an issue with understanding different buyer personas. Or maybe it's the opposite. You get some salespeople that are great at moving deals to the pipeline, but they're terrible at prospecting. Well, then maybe you have to support them by marketing, directing more deals their way because they're going to become more efficient at the result. So it changes the conversation, and it changes also the perspective of the CRM. I bet you everybody listening to this is saying, yeah, but my salespeople don't want to use the CRM. I agree, because there's no purpose for it right now. It's just Big Brother and a big stick saying you have to. But salespeople want to sell. And if they see that there's something that's going to help them get there, the perspective changes.
I agree. Absolutely. It just also increases the morale, as you're saying, basically, because they see the production, they see the results, and they can see that they can also, especially if you give them the tools on how to get there and the training necessary, then they can produce.
That's right. Knowledge empowers. And many times I've had many people say to me, I knew it, right? Like their gut told them what was going on, but there's nothing like having the data to back it up. And so it's very helpful. And it creates also like a level of like consciousness or awareness of the importance of the data. Because if I'm not updating the CRM on a regular basis, how can I empower management to be able to have visibility, to know where to invest so that they give me better leads so I can sell more, right? Nobody's an island. We're all a part of an organization. And I think that understanding of the holistic impact of everybody's contribution is a very important underlying fact of what we're talking about here, right? Like we're only as strong as our weakest link. And so it's very important that everybody understands that their part is important for the whole.
I agree. Juan, if people want to get a hold of you, where should they go?
I mean, the easiest thing is go to Inselligence.com. There's a bunch of different opportunities there to either book a meeting, set up a free diagnostic. We do free diagnostics all the time. I think I mentioned earlier, it's a plug and play solution. So we don't ask anybody to believe a demo. We actually plug in with your data and we give you a free diagnostic of your sales process and your marketing process, so you can know how we're going to add value, right? So I think that's probably the easiest, is just go to our website and just submit a form and we're happy, or just call us, right? The number's on there. Just give us a call.
Absolutely. I strongly suggest that you do that to our listeners. This has been an incredible conversation, Juan, and this is like you're providing such a needed service, because the data is only as good as you can actually do something with it, evaluate it, understand it, and that's what you are giving people the power to look into their own data in order to make the right decisions. So that's very well done on that.
I appreciate it. And I have to say, this world that we're in right now, where everybody is thinking about generative AI, right? And we all are figuring out, how can AI help my business? And obviously we are head first in this world of machine learning and AI. And I think AI has a very important place in a lot of areas of our business. It can help us with content development. It can help us with customer support. It can help us with a lot of processes that historically have been very manual, very scalable with AI, right? AI is also very good when it comes to improving the experience of interacting with data, right? I can quickly ask a system, hey, what's my forecast, my revenue forecast, instead of having to go pull up a report. That's wonderful. I can also use AI for like big data, right? Like I can plug it to the internet like ChatGPT, and all of a sudden simplify the way that the big data is digested, and I get like synthesized data. But when it comes to finite databases, right, like a CRM database, the AI is only going to be as good as your data. And the AI is not going to be able to help you improve your data, right? Because there's going to be data gaps, and it's going to take time to learn it. So that's why I strongly suggest to the listeners that it's important to understand that, which is why our solution, which is built on algorithms that first structure the data, give you visibility of what's going on with your data. Then you can plug in the AI and get exponentially more benefits by scenarios and other potential insights after you've been able to do that. So,
but then the AI can actually help you get the solutions and create the solutions that you actually need, because then maybe you see that there is a certain area that if you create more marketing or you augment your marketing, you're going to be much more successful than use the AI to do that. The same thing applies to processes and workflows. The AI, I mean, you can go to ChatGPT and ask, okay, write me the process for hiring. I mean, it will come up with some process, generic process. But if you don't understand your own workflow and you try to automate, because the word is like, okay, I want to automate. What are you automating exactly? So you need to understand your workflows first, and then use AI for the best that it can give you in terms of, okay, automate the right things, automate something that will actually save you time, because that's the thing. When you actually have the workflow and you go, it will be great to automate this part of the workflow, but it will save me only 5 minutes a day. What's the cost? If you have, you want to make sure that you are within your budget, find something that will actually save you an hour, start there, generate the extra revenue, and then you can automate the rest. So it's also, you have the human that have to understand and evaluate, and then use the AI to support it.
That's right. And this brings up a very important point, that as we went to market and we started to deal with companies, we added a service that in certain situations we offer to the customer, because like you said, people are big into automating, but you almost have to be careful what you automate, right? Because sometimes we'll walk into situations where the people that implemented the CRM were not knowledgeable in the go-to-market effort. So then you first have to say, forget about what's there right now. What should your go-to-market process look like? And we actually give companies a full go-to-market playbook documented. We have templates that we build on based on the specifics of the business, and we deliver it to them. And then we make sure that the way that the CRM is implemented is in line with what their actual go-to-market process is. There's a lot of businesses we've talked to that say, my salespeople don't use my CRM. Well, your CRM is not set up based on the way they sell. So why would they use it, right? So it's almost, be careful.
So give an example of that, like how the CRM, how there is a disconnect between the CRM and the way they sell.
Sure. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is we ran into this CEO that was very proud of his CRM. He said, I have great data. And when we connected with his CRM, he had an 18-stage sales cycle. So we asked him, have you ever been a salesperson? And he wasn't. He was an expert in the service that he launched, but he wanted to be super granular in every little step that he was following. And we told him, no salesperson is going to update an opportunity 18 times to sell one, right? Like, that's not inefficient. The sales cycle was structured from the perspective of a technical person, not from a perspective of how the salesperson is interacting with the prospect. So we made a recommendation based on his specific sales process of a simple 6 to 7 step sales cycle that was based on the way that the salesperson interacted with the prospect, and not based on some technical design. I mean, so that's just one example that comes up. So basically the
CRM has to mirror the sales cycle.
Exactly. And it seems obvious when we talk about it, But the amount of companies that basically delegate the implementation of the CRM to like an administrative person or a CRM implementer that doesn't know their business and doesn't know to take the time to talk to the salespeople to document the process, because they're not RevOps people, right? Like we're in this world of buzzwords, and now everybody's talking about RevOps, right? And essentially what we do is RevOps out of the box, because it just gives all of that mapping and knowledge of how to set up an efficient system to produce results.
Yes. You at the beginning, when we talked, even we talked a little bit before the podcast, you mentioned that the system can actually change from a company, from being, or an organization, from being founder-led, sales that are founder-led or founder-dependent, to scale. How do you see that system by using the intelligence of your sales process? How does that lead from being owners or founder-led to being able to scale?
I mean, again, I'm an analogy guy sometimes, and I'm going to use the skyscraper analogy, right? Like if I don't take the time to build a foundation, I can't scale something up. And it's the same with sales organizations. And many times companies that are founder-led or they're superstar dependent, you haven't taken the time to document, implement, and gather data in a way that then you can plug in additional resources, whether it's more salespeople, additional SDRs, sales development reps, or maybe knowing well which marketing efforts to invest in, so that all of that contributes to a flywheel of a well-synchronized go-to-market system that involves people, processes, and investment in marketing, so that then you can really scale in a way that's sustainable, right? Because the last thing you want to do is that you have a period of growth, but it's not sustainable, and then you implode because you can't scale it, right? So that's ultimately the way that it does it. And an analogy that has helped people in the past, because we all use it every day, right, is Waze. I mean, remember the old days of triptychs? We would go to AAA, and maybe I'm dating myself, but you would have this big paper map, or you would have a triptych from AAA, and you would get on I-95 or I-10, or I don't know where you are in the country, or I-4, wherever you are in the country, you'd get on the highway, and all of a sudden you would just run into an accident, and you were stopped for an hour, and you had no way to anticipate it, right? Well, the ETA that you calculated on paper, you're never going to get there. Now with Waze, it anticipates for us. It gives us 4 different routes. It tells us there's an accident, right? That's exactly the difference between managing your sales through just a CRM and managing it with Inselligence, because it gives you that foresight. It gives you the mapping. It tells you where are there anticipated issues down the road. Really be proactive so you can still get there on time.
That's great. That is a great analogy. Well, Juan, this has been a great conversation, and it is a brilliant tool of getting your sales process to the next level and making sure that it's actually being followed, because you are measuring that it is being followed. So that's a brilliant, brilliant tool. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, and for sharing the passion for process. It's not every day that you can find somebody to geek out on process and structure as much as we just did.
Absolutely. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.